welcome to another Grit and Grime basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sago. With me on the mic, I think he might be in the bubble.
Yes, sir.
Who knows? With the double mask, he's wearing two masks just to be extra safe.
You're damn right. Yes, you're now rocking with the realest, the best. I'll be live from the East London bubble here in Royal Docks. You know how we do.
We will be running through some topics today. We're going to touch on the people that stood for the National Anthem over the weekend in the NBA. We're going to have a look at an underdog from either conference for the playoffs. Oh, and we're going to finish with quickfire predictions as always. So, big weekend in terms of statements, big weekend in terms of a lot of opinions being put across about how to properly protest or not protest Black Lives Matter. It started off with, this was actually the most quiet part of it, even though it was the first to happen. Greg Popovich and Becky Hammon both stood for the National Anthem on Friday evening. And I didn't actually hear about that until Myers Leonard stood the next day.
All right.
Or was it the same day, but later on? I can't remember when Miami played. But yeah, they stood. And then, as I said, Myers Leonard went on to stand for Miami. And that was followed by Jonathan Isaac, who was the only one of the four to not only stand, but also not wear the Black Lives Matter t-shirt or some kind of Black Lives Matter insignia. Greg Popovich was wearing his coach's jacket, which has a Black Lives Matter badge on it. So I wanted to just start off with two black men here. I wanted to start off by saying,
let's not be.
Were you offended?
Hold on. Let's not be with two brothers here. Let's have a real nigga conversation. Let's not even bite our tongues here, bro. Was I offended? Yes, I was offended. I was offended more so by Jonathan Isaacs, and more so by Jonathan Isaacs than anyone else, especially Greg Popovich. The reason why I give Greg Popovich a bit more leeway is because outside of what's Man City's, outside of Steve Kerr and Man City's head coach, what's his name? Pep
Guardiola.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola. I thought that was his surname. I haven't heard of any white professional in the I guess media space, in inverted commas, be it sports space, whatever, be so vocal when it comes to racial injustice than Greg Popovich. And with someone that was brought up to be very proud and loving of his own race, be very proud and loving of women with his own race, having been chased, assaulted, insulted due to my race, due to being black, having been stopped by police officers on more than several times in my, like more than 7 times, like many times in my life, having had been accused of so many things by police officers, but and it builds up a disdain of towards white people and white police officers. To hear someone like Greg Popovich be so vocal and understanding and open, and him and Steve Kerr and Pep Guardiola, I can't help but give Greg Popovich a bit of a pass. It might be. I think and it's weird because in America, there's the whole national anthem thing, which is a weird thing, is tied into military, which is it goes over my head, to be quite frank. Even though, with that being said, my sister, who is a nationalized American, was in the military, and that's a whole nother conversation in itself.
Could we just pause on that point for a second then? Is she offended when she sees people kneel for the national anthem?
She's not offended, no.
Okay, because that's something that I think a lot of people need to hear. Because as you said, you don't understand the attachment between the national anthem and the military. I had a long, drawn-out conversation this afternoon about it as well, as I have with friends in the past, and it's almost like the whole system of patriotism has been set up in a way that not only glorifies being in the military, but attaches it to all of the freedoms in America, and also attaches it to attaches the military to the national anthem, as if they're one and the same. Exactly, right? Because the reality is, sure, America is a free country and you have freedom of speech and all of these things, but that's not necessarily what the military is doing when the military is doing the military, right?
Sure.
People didn't go to Iraq to protect American freedoms, right? I don't want to get too deep into the politics of it, but there are people in the military, and actually going all the way back to Kaepernick kneeling, although it was years ago now, he specifically asked someone in the military what would be an appropriate way to protest the national anthem that would not be offensive. And he was told by someone in the military that kneeling would be the way to do it. So it even came, obviously one person doesn't represent the whole, but it came from a place where he didn't want to disrespect the military. And now that has become a symbol for the Black Lives Matter movement, leading us all the way back to today, where although Greg Popovich surprisingly, I was shocked, surprisingly didn't, I wasn't, not so much that he didn't, it was surprising that he stood, but it was more surprising that he didn't explain it because of everything you just said about him. He's been excellent at talking about racism in America, and he will call it racism in America. He won't hide behind terms like social injustice and social unrest, and he'll call it like it is. Racism, country's racist. This is the issues that we have, and this is why we have these issues. For someone who has been so vocal and so clear in the past to now stand and not explain, this is exactly why I'm standing and this is where I sit on things, that
it's a bit grating.
I'm no one. But now I'm scared and I'm worried that in the future, when he speaks out against racism and speaks out against things, that people are going to say, well, you didn't kneel. That's my concern. He is former Air Force. Didn't say that was why he stood. No. But he is former Air Force.
I kind of, and sorry to cut you off, but this is the thing. It's just, it's a difficult one because I don't necessarily want to give anyone a pass, but because he's so vocal and he's so honest and he's so forthright with his opinion, and I agree with you. I don't disagree with you, right? Like it's almost like what's the least he could do? almost, and he stood up, but he still had something that he still wore something that pointed to Black Lives Matter and the issues that is connected to Black Lives Matter and so on and so forth. You know, be it a T-shirt, be it a badge, be it whatever. He still wore something. He still wore something in representation. So it wasn't like it wasn't like a Jonathan Isaacs type situation. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that. And not that I want to give him a pass, but it's almost like a bit of an okay, like all right, fine. You know, if that makes sense. And I get it. I understand where you're coming from, and I agree where you're coming from. But it's just so difficult for me to really sort of go at him the way I really want to go at Jonathan Isaac for his bullshit.
And then Myers Leonard had said that he spoke to teammates. He had difficult conversations all week because he knew deep down that he didn't want to kneel, for the national anthem. But he had those conversations with Udonis Haslam and other people within the Heat organization, his black teammates. And so they knew that he was going to stand ahead of time. He did it because his brother is a former Marine. So again, it's this link between Army and Anthem. That's causing people to not.
We this is not the platform for it, but I again, it is how the American national anthem has been intertwined with this military state of mind, where even when the national anthem, as fraudulent as it is, if you actually listen to the words, in regards to how African Americans have been treated from day zero to right now, have been how in inverted commas Native Americans have been treated from day zero to right now. How anyone outside of white Europeans in America has been treated, you know, from day zero right till now. It is. I just don't understand it. But again, this is not the platform for it, and again, if it's just a thing where it's like for the military, and they still are vocal, you know, then fine. I can almost I don't want to necessarily give a pass, but my back isn't up for it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. You know, again, this leads me into Jonathan Isaac, who just went full fuck you niggas, basically.
Not
to
yet.
me.
Not yet. Myers Leonard did mention, or I read an article on it. I can't remember whether he mentioned it or whether it was just highlighted in the article, but he has been contributing to Black causes in terms of helping people restart their lives when they come out of prison. He's joined up with UD to contribute to a number of charities and causes. So he's been active in the community. It's just that now that the NBA has agreed to waive this rule that you have to stand, he's been faced with this decision to make in a public forum. So although those cases seem to keep bringing up this false equivalent of national anthem equals military, as people who are clearly not racist and are clearly for the Black Lives Matter movement as a statement, as a subject,
as a civil rights statement.
Yes, I can't say I'm like offended or outraged at them standing. That brings us to Jonathan Isaac. Now, he chose to, as I said, stand and not wear the shirt. And he was faced with the initial question of, do you believe Black Lives Matter? That was the question posed to him. Do you think that was a legitimate question considering the situation?
Do you think it was a legitimate question? Yes,
Yeah,
I do.
I agree.
Yes, I do.
I agree. I agree.
Shout out to Taylor Brooks. Taylor Rooks, sorry.
Yeah.
She's an incredible journalist, sports journalist, and yeah, she went for the juggler. She didn't pussyfoot around it. She went for the juggler. She shot from three, and she didn't pussyfoot around it. And she asked him straight up, like, do you believe Black Lives Matter? And I wasn't. There was. So he kind of gave two answers to me. He basically said that I don't believe, and this is me paraphrasing, but I don't believe standing up and wearing a shirt contributes to caring about Black lives, or if that makes But then he went off into a and I don't mean to offend anyone listening and or watching, but then he went off into this sort of biblical, sort of like religious rant. I can't say faith-based rant, a religious rant, or his rant took a religious turn, and it was like it was almost like faith takes it almost like the pain of his people is secondary to his beliefs or something like that, and it just I don't know, his answer rubbed me up the wrong way. It felt slightly dismissive to me. It felt almost like especially if you go back and watch it and listen to him and the way he answered it, like how he was breathing, how quickly he answered, the words he used, sort of his cadence and his voice and so on and so forth. It almost felt like he just wanted to kind of get out of the way, and just be done with it. So the first half of his first half of the answer was, somewhat understandable, because really and truly, if in the grand scheme of things, and we're just talking about symbolism here. Yeah. Does symbolism contribute to mattering about Black lives? Does symbolism contribute to civil rights? Now, don't get me wrong, it actually does contribute, because it sparks a flame. Because just like Tupac says, I just need one person, just need to affect one person, right? And that symbolism sparks a flame in one person, and that one person can go off and do great things, right? Yeah. Now, this symbolism around the world that's been happening has sparked off into a fire in a bunch of people in order to get things moving, to get things done in many areas
all over the world.
Exactly, all over the world. Now, don't get me wrong, the UK is shit. It's going to be shit. It's especially with the whole N-word shit on BBC the other day. But at the end of the day, things are happening. Things are happening, and sparks are being lit. So where I understand where he's coming from, he's wrong in saying that it doesn't. It for the most part means nothing, And I think that he could have shown some solidarity for the pain and the blood spilt by his own people. Like it doesn't. You don't need to. Again, I'm not a religious person, but although I grew up Catholic and I grew up in the church, as of the last 20 some years, I haven't been religious. I'm more faith based. I know for a fact that it says somewhere in the Bible, I can't remember what testament or whatever it is, but it says somewhere in the Bible.
Page 332, man. Step your game up.
All right, cool. Something. Whereby he says, someone says, I can't you can't worship some like God without sort of everyone, and or someone's missing or something to that effect. And if one person is missing, we can't fully, you know, engross ourselves in worship, basically. So what's basically being said is like, everyone, if you're religious, everyone needs to be a part of it, you know. And if you're going to use that religious angle and in a way not to support your own people, support black people that have died, that have been murdered, then you're kind of going against what's being said in your scriptures, you know. And I was saying, I wish I had the actual quote here, but
Sure.
but yeah, it's aggravating, man. It's really aggravating.
Yeah, because I think where he got lost was, sure, you can say that wearing a t-shirt and kneeling isn't the only way to help Black lives. Sure, you can do other things to help Black lives, but not wearing a t-shirt and not kneeling makes a statement in itself, right? Because he's amongst everyone, his teammates, his peers, coaches, all of his peers are there.
Yes,
they're making a statement, and he's choosing to not make a statement. And by doing that, you're making an anti-statement. Yes, absolutely. It's an anti-statement. Yes. So that's why that question was totally justified, because he chose not to wear a t-shirt and chose not to kneel, right? He's making the anti-statement. And off the back of that, I found out the day after, I think it was Sunday, off the back of that, I found out he has the second highest selling jersey in the league right now.
Right. So I heard this. Now, what the first thing that ran through my mind, right, was, okay, second where? Are we talking about second within the last week, within the last month? Are we talking about second overall, or are we talking about second in Orlando or in Florida? I mean, like it. It's just too numbers, generalizing. Right? It's too generalizing.
Okay, that's fair, but as a statement, that also says something, right? Let's say it was just second best selling right now, today.
But you know who's buying it though.
But exactly.
It's not black. It's not black folks.
That's my point. And that's what I mean about making an anti-statement, right? He can make himself. He has made himself. Essentially, his jersey can now be used as an anti-BLM symbol, right? In the same way that when Nike came out and said we're still paying Colin Kaepernick, and then people went and burned their Nike trainers, people can walk around wearing BLM t-shirts, and someone can counter that with a Jonathan Isaacs t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that would sit with me in his, not that I would do it, but I don't know how that would sit with me in his position. Because he has, as you said, come out against, it's a statement against the movement, whether that was his intentions or not. And yeah, that to put yourself in a position to be held up as a symbol for that is, I don't know what it is. It's something. But then following the game Sunday night against the Blazers, Jaylen Brown sat down in front of the media and had this statement to say. He never mentions Jonathan Isaac, but I feel personally that this statement was in direct response to the people that stood over the weekend. So hopefully this can be heard.
Before we get started, guys, I want to address the National Anthem. I want to show my solidarity to the NBA and Adam Silver for allowing us to be able to peacefully protest some of the injustices we felt. Proud of the Boston Celtics as well. Angela Davis once said that racism is so dangerous, not because of individual actors, because it's deeply embedded in the apparatus. I think about that quote a lot when I think about the National Anthem, which was written by Francis Scott Key, who was a slave owner. When we talk about the National Anthem, we don't really talk a lot about the third verse that was written, which addresses, slavery, mentions like there's no hope for, a hireling or a slave, but the gloom of the grave. So racism is so deeply embedded in our country that people don't even flinch or even shift at the idea. It kind of is what it is. It's not the protest, it's not the police officers, the police brutality. It is, all of that is important, but it's also, the framework of systemic oppression. And that's starting with the National Anthem. So I think being able to take a knee is appropriate, and it may not even really be enough. But I'm proud of the NBA for being a part of the right side of how people feel.
So that's what he said, and he was actually able to quote the third verse of the anthem, which is straight out racist, as he said. There's no hope for the what was it, for the slave, but the gloom of the grave, right? So where Black people are there to be slaves and to be killed, and that is the anthem that we're supposed to stand up and show respect for. And when you combine that with the fact that Black people have historically and repeatedly been sent to the front lines of war, and sent to fight wars that have absolutely nothing to do with us, for a country that treats Black people like the bottom rung of society.
100%.
It
speaks volumes.
It does speak volumes. In fact, my sister said earlier that what people need to understand is that when Myers Leonard, maybe when Greg Popovich, he didn't say, but maybe when they stand for the flag, when they stand for the national anthem, sorry, not the flag, they stand for their reasons, right? If Greg Popovich is thinking about all the friends that he had and lost in the Air Force, that's fair. If Myers Leonard is thinking about what his brother went through as a Marine, that's fair. But not everyone is thinking that when the national anthem plays. And I think that's something that that people that are quick to shout down people kneeling or sitting during the anthem, that's what they need to think about. What are we thinking? What are other people thinking when that anthem plays? Because it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. So I think we'll leave it at that.
Oh man.
And that's this feeling now. This is why.
This is it.
We don't like speaking out about these things, about racism. It's a negative subject, but we have to address it. It's a burden. People think that we love to play the race card. There's nothing you love about it.
We don't listen. There's nothing we do not want to play the race card. But from day one, we've been made to play the race card. From the day white people came and realized there were anyone other than white people on this earth, we really had to play the race card because we've been divided that way. So anyone that says that is just a fool or buffoon. We're our backs against the wall, and we have to play the race card. When you're out there wanting to say, "Oh, why can't we say nigger?" We have to play the race card. When our names are subject to ridicule because they're cultural the cultural base, we're made to play the race card. When black women are accused of being aggressive when they're being actually passionate, that we have to play the race card. When black people can't are being held back, or not necessarily being held back, can't advance in their chosen field, and when they're clearly better than the next person, and they're held back because of the color of their skin, that we're forced to play the race card. When bananas are thrown at us, we're on the pitch, we're forced to play a race card. When it is aggravating. I have 38 years of angst and aggravation and anger that this, and it is, like you said, it is burdening. We don't want to have to. We don't want to have to. Let's keep it funky donkey. Shit. And we had to play the race card flipping last season when Westbrook got disrespected in Utah. Mm-hmm. Shit, do you know how many times Boston Celtics players had to play the fucking race card during Bill Russell's days?
Bill Russell, for that reason specifically, didn't want to have his jersey raised in front of the fans because of all the racist abuse he got over the years.
I literally saw someone wearing Make America Great Again, MAGA hat last season during the playoffs. MAGA hat. That's what did I say? Magma?
Hot magma.
I said something. I literally saw someone wear a MAGA hat during the playoffs last season at Utah's home arena, and it was like oh man, it is how many you and I are both British born, obviously. We've had football in our lives, ingrained in our lives since day zero, right? We've had to play the race card. We're from London, right? Chelsea, we've had to play the race card. West Ham, we've had to play the race card. I'm a Tottenham fan. Fuck me. They did the effigy of what's his name? Sol Campbell and hung him. Hung him when he left. We've had to play the fucking race card. It is anyone that says, any sports person, especially black sports person, right? Man or woman, tells them to shut up and dribble, shut up and bounce the ball, shut up and do this. Fuck off. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? But
it's a lack of empathy.
I digress. I digress.
Tell us how you really feel, though. All right. So, let's get back to basketball, shall we?
Let's get it.
So we had the start of the season. I forget we hadn't actually started, before the last podcast. So the season started back up in the bubble. A host of games. We had the Battle of LA on the first evening. We've had a number of battles that will help decide what happens with the 8th seed in the West. The Nets have slipped down to the 8th seed in the East. But I wanted to specifically talk about you wanted to specifically talk about a team who has been marginalized, disrespected, not given their due as champions. Words to Nathan Caton.
Not at all.
The Toronto Raptors.
I am not a Toronto Raptors fan. I have no allegiance to Toronto. No allegiance, no affiliation. Although apparently I do have family that are from Toronto. You in the closet. I've never met them. I don't know who they are.
You're wearing a Warriors t-shirt over your Raptors jersey.
It's
in your blood.
Firstly, I've said it before on the show.
Look at you, Air Canada.
The Warriors are my sister's local team.
Yeah, that's why you're repping.
All right. So
only team you're repping.
The only team I would ever rep are the Bulls. Anyway,
where's your Bulls t-shirt?
Shut up, it's in the wash. So yeah, no, the disrespect.
The Bulls are washed.
Big facts. Well, I mean, once we get rid of Jim Boylan, we'll be all right.
Then you'll be more washed. Go on. Yeah. So the Raptors. Sorry, I cut you off.
That's cool. The Raptors. I don't know. It is. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, or I didn't start off what I'm about to say with. I think the how the Raptors are being spoken about and treated by the media, and I'm talking by media, I'm talking about big US media, sports media, big US basketball media, podcasts. I'm talking about YouTube channels. I'm talking about people that have their own IG accounts, which are now called blogs for some reason, which is weird. But like everyone, or I would say a large majority of the disrespect, shall I say, towards the Raptors, I believe is related to how the US views Canadians, and it is almost that little brother or little guy or look at them type syndrome, where the US sees themselves as the bigger brother, as the bigger Don, bigger nine. Shout out to New Jersey Twerk. And sees Canada as this polite little kid, that says A and whatnot, and the only thing going for them is A. And a boot. The only thing going for them is Drake when that is not it, and is the way they're being treated, and also not to long this out, but also it also has something to do with the fact that not only were they getting so far with DeRozan for many years, but not far enough. That one move that they did to remove him and bring in Kawhi is like, oh, it was Kawhi that got you the championship. Whereas when you actually look at the proof of the pudding, when Kawhi was sat, they had a better record.
Had a great record.
So a lot of it stems from that. Now into this season, it is ridiculous to me. Yes, they're not first. Were they first last season?
Nope, they were second.
Exactly. Fine. And it is almost that they're just little broing a lot of people. Shout out to Hoop Genius. I got loads of respect for him.
Big love.
But again, it's almost like the way people talk about Toronto is disrespectful it's disrespectful in my opinion to basketball. It is disrespectful to the game, and it's disrespectful to competitiveness, because you see these juggernauts. They're not playing well in 7th place. They're not playing well in 6th. They're playing well in 3rd place.
Second.
And
they're second.
Wow.
To the second.
Excuse me. They're playing phenomenally in 2nd, right? Second to a juggernaut by the name of Milwaukee Bucks, right? So we're putting the Milwaukee Bucks to the side, right? Who's the next big team? It goes to Toronto. Now, people just want the Sixers. People, it's almost like this 90s thing with Allen Iverson and this all fairy tale thing that people just want the Sixers. People want a juggernaut big market team in the East, American big market team in the East, because they've got Embiid, because they've got Ben Simmons, and because of those two players, they want the Sixers to be. But no, the Sixers aren't that team. They're not those guys. They ain't them niggas.
It's not that. It's not that. The reason it's gone like that, the reason people want to talk about the Sixers all the time, or the reason Boston fans want to keep telling us about Boston,
Yeah.
is it's because the league, and I've spoke about this before, and it's great, but it also has its downsides. It's because the league markets, discusses, gears everything they talk about in the media around the star players. And
Correct. That's true.
in Philly, you have two all-stars who are flashy in their own ways, super talented in their own ways, and are lightning rods for attention in their own ways.
Correct.
And the Raptors just don't have that. So in a sense,
but then they have
the
Siakam.
Spurs, but he doesn't get the same kind of shine. Part of that is because he's not American. He doesn't get the same kind of shine as those other guys do. I think there is a lot more buzz around Tatum as a player than there is around Siakam.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a big fact. I feel if Toronto are able to get out of the East, right? And to me, it's between them and the Bucks. And if they were able to defend their championship, right? Which they can, because I think they're a matchup issue for anyone in the West. They're going to, I think the NBA and sports media, and that is big US corporations, right down to YouTube channels, right over to podcasts, right? They're going to do to them what has been done to the Detroit Pistons from what the
04
the 04 season, 03 04 season, and it is those Detroit teams had no stars, right? Had no stars, were under. And you think in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of competitiveness, in the grand scheme of David and Goliath, not to be biblical because I'm not, right? But
it's your second Bible quote of the episode.
I know.
Have a drink if you're listening at home.
In all of that, you'd think that and the way that Americans like to say that they're all for the little guy that rises from the underdog, that rises from the bottom to the top. You think that they champion the past the Detroit Pistons teams. You think they want to champion a team like Toronto Raptors, but it's just so contradictory. I almost want them to win, but my Nigerian bias comes out. Me being half Nigerian, because I want Giannis to win it. But neither here nor there. If it's not Giannis, then I want the Raptors. I want the Raptors to win it, because it is getting silly now. People need to. And listen, like I tweeted on the weekend, they win against the Lakers. They win it. They win. On Monday, right?
Against Miami.
Against Miami. It goes to show you have to stop sleeping on them. And it wasn't like they struggle on. It wasn't like they they didn't deserve those wins. They rightly deserved. Rightly deserved the win against Lakers, and they played well against Miami.
Yeah, they're a really good team, man, and the championship experience has only made them better. Their season has been incredible. I think Nick Nurse deserves Coach of the Year as much as the Bucks have set a bunch of records this season. With the injuries that they've had this season, everyone and their mother has been out for some kind of period for them, and they've just had a next man up mentality, filled in the gaps, and kept on winning to the point where they are second in the East, and that's nothing to sniff at. I do firmly believe that the reason they're being underrated is because they have no stars. Like people would be talking about them if Kawhi was still there. People would be talking about them if they had a Giannis or a LeBron or whoever,
But
to
I
sort
don't.
of frame the team.
But this is the thing. I have to call slight BS on that. Although I understand where you're coming from, I have to call slight BS on that, because if we go to last season, how are they being talked about? It was Kawhi and them. Kawhi and them.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's how people talk about the NBA. That's how people talk about the NBA. It's a star-driven league, man. And that's why, going back to what you said about the underdog, the NBA doesn't market itself like that. I know, like, Americans and American sports stories and things like that, they do definitely love an underdog, and it's great when an underdog wins, but then that's never the story, right? They always go back to whoever's the biggest, whoever's the brightest, whoever's the flashiest. The league will always go back to talking about exactly what they like talking about, and that is the stars, period. It's just the way it is. I've kind of accepted it.
Slowly but surely, Kyle Lowry is actually becoming one of my favorite players in the league.
It's great.
I think, as much as I champion the Raptors, and I want them to receive a lot more respect, I need to give a little bit more respect to Kyle Lowry, because I haven't necessarily been a fan of his. Not for any other reason other than, I've not had, because he draws so many fouls. He draws so many charges. He does it a lot against us Bulls. He does it a lot.
He does it against them. He leads the league.
He leads the league, and and the thing is, regardless of those charges, he is the symbol of, like, you're gonna have to kill me to beat me.
Right.
Literally, you're gonna have to kill me to beat me. Or if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. or if you're going to beat me, then you're leaving with one limb missing, at least something, because it's gonna be a dogfight.
He's a fighter,
and
yeah.
That game against Miami, and I might even watch it again during lunch tomorrow. Not during lunch, during breakfast tomorrow. I might watch the highlights. It was like, we're not gonna lose this game. Like, there's so many times where he came down the length of the floor, hit the three, hit a heat check, I think once or twice. He basically hit a couple of heat checks, and it was like, yeah, this he's refusing to allow them to lose.
And that was the same mentality he came out with in Game 6 in the finals last year. It was him that came out blazing from the start, scoring like 17 or something first half points, or was it first quarter points? He was definitely in double digits in the first quarter. And he's a player, man. He's a player. He can do a lot of things on the floor, but just his drive, and his floor generalship, like that stuff doesn't turn up in the stat sheet.
Box.
But if you know playing point guard and what goes into it, when you watch him play, you will see an excellent showcase of what point guards should do on the floor.
Absolutely. Him and Chris Paul are not the same, but they're from very similar cloths. Similar cloths. Yeah. And you're right. The floor generalship and
the leadership.
Yeah.
And then the defense. Yeah, it does. Both of them are excellent examples of that. And it's funny you brought up the comparison to the Detroit Pistons, because Chauncey Billups was another guy who ended up leaving with Finals MVP. You didn't know who it was going to go to, but his floor generalship was up there as well. He's another guy who, his stats weren't the gaudiest, But
No.
if you watched him play, if you watch the way he can control a game, control the pace of a game, set up his teammates, dictate where they should go, he's another guy that just epitomized that
100%.
on-court leadership that you could and should get from the point guard
100%.
position, or whoever's handling the ball these days.
100%.
What's a point guard?
100%.
In the West, to me, the team that's being slept on is the Rockets. And there's a couple reasons why I think that. The Rockets have, I think some people have dismissed them because they've seen Harden tail off in the playoffs a few too many times. I tend to disagree with that take. Outside of that one game where the Spurs closed them out without Kawhi, aside from that year, maybe the year when they beat the Clippers, when he got benched and the bench came on and Brewer and Josh Smith hit all the threes.
He tailored off against the Warriors, bro.
See, I just think he got beat by a better team. They played good. Like, the Warriors have some of the best wing defenders in the league. Yeah, you're not going to shoot as good a percentage against the Warriors. They're an excellent defensive team. So yeah, the Spurs are an excellent defensive team. And those are the two teams that had knocked them out of the playoffs every year for the last 5 years. Right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, you're not always going to shoot well. And yeah, so I think that has sort of tainted people's view of what they can do. Now the Spurs aren't the Spurs anymore, and the Warriors aren't the Warriors anymore. There's two new challenges in the Clippers and Lakers, and you could easily argue that the Rockets have played those two teams as well as anyone has this regular season. So for me, I don't, although those two teams will probably expect to beat them, will obviously call themselves the favorite against the Rockets, and they would have had home court advantage, whatever that means, in the bubble. The Rockets have the tools to put the fear of God in either of those teams. And it's going to be interesting to see how those teams adapt to playing against the Rockets with the way that they now line up without a traditional big, and with Covington covering a lot of the rim protecting duties. A lot of Laker fans that I've seen around Reddit and other websites on the internet seem to be dismissing their threat because they're like, oh, well, we'll out-rebound them. Well, guess what? The Warriors got out-rebounded every single year of the finals.
That's not
that
even
they won
a valid excuse.
championship.
In fact, if you bear with me, I think that is also such a fallacy, because one, I think the thing with the Rockets, right, is not the fact that they get out rebounded, is the fact is their second chance, second chances, and they're really up high when it comes to their second chances, and the energy that goes into, that their guards put into rebounding really levels the playing field, or even if it doesn't level the playing field, it causes enough havoc, right, on the opposing team that they know what to do. So they're either able to backtrack on defense if they're in that position, or if they get they're able to get a rebound, then they're shooting straight away, and and
you're not going to keep up with them in transition.
100%,
100%. Yeah, and that's a big reason why they've been able to compete with teams while being out rebounded by ridiculous amounts. And they're not the first team to do that. As I said, the Warriors have done that for a long time. Even D'Antoni's old Suns teams were out rebounded a lot. And it doesn't matter if you're forcing turnovers, which can lead to a lot more than points of turnovers tend to lead to more points total than second chance points do. And if you're hitting from the outside and getting to the line, as much as they
Yep.
do. So you can make up for it in a lot of other ways. And they're built to exploit those ways. They are the epitome of modern day basketball in that sense. And teams are throwing double teams at Harden, which means that the rest of the players on the court at the time get to go 4-on-3, and they're punishing teams. And it's we've seen it work against the Clippers. We've seen it work against the Lakers. They've beaten both of those teams already. And then even if we want to go back to the Harden argument, he tails off in the playoffs, he gets tired in the playoffs, he fatigues in the playoffs. He's just had 3 months off, 4 months off. And he's been conditioning in that time.
Exactly.
So now
and he's usually one of the best conditioned players in the league anyway. You know, like, so, you know, he's, like I said, he's had 3 months off, 4 months off. He's going to be, when it comes to the playoffs, he'll be fine. But I don't think, and I had to call slight BS on that, because I don't think they're underrated personally, not in comparison to the Raptors. I think that the Nuggets are a lot more underrated, but then you don't really think that they're even gonna make any noise.
I think they're properly rated.
I think people are aware of how dangerous, or are now aware of how dangerous the Rockets are. I genuinely don't think that they're
yeah,
underrated.
we might just talk to see different people, right?
Yeah.
That's possible. In which case I would agree with those people. The Rockets are dangerous. The Rockets are dangerous.
They are dangerous people. But again, I think it is for me. Who do you think it is when it comes to the Rockets, right, in the West? All right, yeah, okay. When it comes to the Rockets in the West and the East, what is a bad matchup for them?
It's really hard to say because of this change, not change in style, because it's the same style, but this the way that they've pushed this style to the extreme. Originally, I think it was the Jazz that beat the brakes off them, but then after that, since then they've beaten the Jazz, they've beaten the Lakers since. They beat the Clippers before with Capella. I don't know who will break their system. I'd like to hope it's like an AD who's big and mobile. But when the Lakers played the Rockets, what we saw was if you overfeed the post, they're just going to collapse. They're going to collapse on the post and force turnovers. And you can't just force feed the inside. Maybe an Embiid would do better. He's not in the West. Maybe Jokic. I haven't actually checked the matchups between the Rockets and the Nuggets, but maybe Jokic playing against that system would feast. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. The other possibility is that there's a team that's better at playing small ball than they are, right?
Small ball versus Nuggets tall ball with ball inside.
You rapping now, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we talk to me. We talk to me.
Ball would be outside though, wouldn't he?
I mean, he would be outside, but then.
But yeah, I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? That you could have people so skilled that although they're big man height, 6'9" plus, they have guard skills. Like KD is the answer to every single every single question in basketball. KD is the answer. He's the one that would kill him. But yeah, no, I'm not sure, and that's part of why I think people are underrating the threat of the Rockets, because they could beat anyone on their day. I'm just glad it's 7 games, man. I'm going to jump straight to our predictions. I was going to do a predictions review, but since Mike and Tom aren't here to hear about how I whip their butts on the predictions, I'll save it for later. But I think I got every game right that we predicted, save for who was it? The Pelicans got beat by 1 possession by the Jazz. I can't believe it. So we'll start off with Portland, Denver.
Portland, Denver. Woo! I'm gonna go with Portland because they're desperate.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna go Portland as well, just because I think they can match up with the size of Jokic and simultaneously, they need it more, and then also Denver are missing a few players. And then, coming off our last conversation, Lakers, Houston. Lakers have already clinched home court advantage throughout the playoffs. Woo! Hollywood, baby. Hollywood.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling that they might take the foot off the gas in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a funny feeling. Who they got? Well, they've got the Thunder. Oh, they got the Thunder before that. And okay, so, or maybe not. Maybe they'll take the foot off the gas against Thunder.
Rapid fire.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna I'm gonna go for the Rockets again because they need it more.
They might. Who is it? Will they choose that game to make a statement?
Who, the Rockets?
The Lakers.
Fuck. Oh, to make a statement.
Because the Lakers did lose the last game against the Rockets.
Oh, that's a good question.
It might not matter, you know.
I mean, but
I'm gonna go Rockets. I'm gonna go Rockets.
You said to make a statement because they might take the foot off the gas against the Thunder, but to make a statement, they'll probably put the foot back on the gas against the Rockets.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What's this? Friday night, Saturday morning, we have Boston versus Toronto. They're gonna get their revenge on Hoop Genius.
This is going to be interesting.
Boys.
I'm gonna see if we need to contact Boston Brit, see if he's gonna see him and the Hoop Genius are gonna do like a collective watch party.
Rapid fire.
You weren't rapid in the last one. I think it's going to be the Raptors. I think the Raptors are going to professionally sort them out.
Okay.
It's going to be a professional beating. Sorry, Boston Brit. I fucks with you, Mike. You're my guy. You're my guy.
You said a professional beating, you know.
Wait for it. Listen, I just think the Raptors.
He doesn't even know what to say.
Sorry.
I'm gonna make sure they tear you up in the group chat. Where am I going? Boston, Toronto.
Rapid fire.
I'll go Toronto. And then finally, in the battle for the 8th spot, we got San Antonio versus New Orleans Sunday evening.
Oh, that's New Orleans all day. That's New Orleans.
I'm gonna take the Spurs.
Really? Why?
Yeah, the Spurs have been playing decently in the bubble. They edged out the Grizzlies in the clutch. They beat the Kings, and then they lost narrowly to Philly. But I think when you talk about professional, I think their experience is gonna show against the Pelicans. So I'll take them. And we will see who is correct next week. So thank you for being here, Ayo. Thank you for doing the pod with us.
Wait, what do you mean? Thank you for I'm still a rookie. What are we doing?
Are you on probation, Holmes?
Never. Never.
You ain't got the full contract yet. You haven't got the dental plan.
No, so I've got my dental plan.
The Sainsbury's discount. So remember to like, share, subscribe, review the podcast on Apple. 5 stars if you please. If you don't please, then please contact us. Let us know what we can improve on, what you'd like to see us talk about. All feedback is welcome. So from me, David Sago, from IOBAB.
IOB, you're now rocking with the realest, you're now rocking with the best.
We're out of here.